Right, okay, so we're in the second one, and I'm going to concentrate on the status bar. Now I've increased the number of icons to the maximum number that we can get on the bottom. I'll show you all that in a second. I've also turned these tabs on, so if you're wondering how to control these things, then you have to go back to the options. So down to here, so on the application menu, options, and under the display you've got display, layout and model tabs. So, okay, so that's going to turn these on or off. Options can be achieved by typing in OP, by the way, as well, so that's options. So I've also reduced this down, so it's now looking like it would do in the university. However, this has changed. Okay, I've cranked this up to its maximum number of potential icons, which is ridiculous. But anyway, this is all the stuff you can have. I've turned it all on, so we can turn them off one by one. Coordinates. This is this thing here. So as I move my cursor around, the values are changing, they're updating. So as I'm going in a positive XY direction, I've got positive XY values, negative Y, positive X, negative Y's and X, and then we've got negative X, positive Y. The Z value isn't changing because I'm working in this 2D environment. As soon as I went into a 3D one and started moving it up, then that would give me a value. Now you might want that, it's entirely up to you, but anyway, I'm going to turn it off. So coordinates gone. This one, model, paper, model. This is a weird one really, because you go from model space, which is this drafting environment. That's kind of what I should have mentioned as well a bit earlier. So model space is where you draw, layout space is where you set up and print, more or less. I see often people putting drawing templates in model space. Mugs game, get into using the layout. You'll find life much easier. Draw full scale, and then you've got complete control over how big these things are. All you have to remember is that when you're drawing something that's potentially going to be output at a big scale, i.e. 1 to 100, 200, 500, 1000, then it's going to be reduced by that scale factor. So don't draw detailed items because they won't view. If you've got things that are 1 to 10, 20, 50, or 1 to 1, 1 to 2, then obviously you can put more detail into the drawing. Okay, so the scale is important, but also the level of the detailing you draw is also equally as important. But anyway, this thing, if I turn this on, clicked in this model space, it takes me over to layout space. Now if I click on this one, paper, you'd think that it would take you back to model space, but it doesn't. It takes you through the viewport into model space, but doesn't actually get you back to this tab. So what you have to do is click on that to turn off the viewport. You can access it by double clicking as well. Double click away from it, deselects, and then back to model space. So you can keep that on, turn it off, but I'm going to close these down as I go through. So that's model space dealt with. The next one is the grid. Display grid or not, F7 grid mode. It doesn't do anything apart from turns the grid on and off. So you might decide to have it on in the background, you might decide that you don't want it on the background, but I'll leave it on because the next one is snap mode, F9, and this gets turned on by lots of people thinking that it's the display of the grid, or they just don't realize what they've done. And then when you come to draw, you notice that the cursor jumps from intersection of the grid to intersection of the grid. Now, circuit boards, all that sort of stuff, easy stairs, all done very nicely with this. Okay, easy illegal stairs at that. It's snapping to the grid intersection points. So if you don't want that, if I wanted to snap somewhere in the middle of this, I can't do it, and this kind of frustrates people. I do get people very upset that they can't jump to it, it just won't allow me to do it. So F9, toggle that on and off, and you're good to go. Also, we've got a little down pointing arrow. You get this on this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. So you see the down pointing arrows. These all come down to some extra settings, or we've got this drafting settings dialog box, and the tabs relate to these things. Okay, so that's referring to the snap settings. Then you've got polar tracking, this one, You got object snap, this one. You got 3D object snap, this one. Dynamic input, that's this thing. No down pointing arrow, it's just some settings for that. And quick properties and selection cycling. So selection cycling is which one? This one here. And quick properties is something else that will just come up when you are drawing. So I'll leave those on because they're useful. This next one, constrain, infer constraints, that's on the parametric tab, and this is something that you would tend to use in programs like Inventor. Use a lot of this sort of stuff, other SolidWorks type packages, constrain various objects to various other ones. Turn that off, okay, because otherwise it's going to just, every time you draw something, it'll infer certain constraints, thinking that that's the way you want to draft. So turn that off. In fact, much better, just hide it completely. Infer constraints, don't want to see that one. Next one, most important one of all, dynamic input. We want to keep that turned on, and we want to keep it visible so we know it's turned on. F12 is the F key of choice for this one. Now, dynamic input gives you the heads-up display information on screen. When I go to create an object, I get C on screen, specify first point, specify next point, etc., etc. Okay, so dynamic input, I can't stress how important dynamic input is. This next one, equally as important, I think. Restrict cursor to specified angles. So again, if we click on this, we've got different option settings. 90 degrees is the initial default value, and what does that mean? It means that if I click somewhere to start, then every 90 degrees is going to throw out this green track line, and it'll track along that. It allows me to create my geometry. It's almost like having ortho mode, which I'll talk to you about next. So this is really useful. If I wanted to draw at 30-degree angle increments, then every 30 degrees I now get the option. It's not 30 only, it's every 30. So 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180, etc. all the way around. This one, ortho mode, F8. If I turn that on, polar tracking turns off. Okay, these now toggle. I can turn them both off, but if I turn one, I can't have the other one on. Okay, so that's kind of useful. So ortho mode just restricts to 90 degrees regardless. Okay, so just drawing at 90 degrees, no option, and it's either going to go down or up depending on where I'm moving my cursor. New selection method as well, kind of foxes me a bit. This one, draw in isometric, iso draft. Let's just turn that off. We don't need to see a demo on that. We're not going to be using isometric drafting, but the key for that is F5. That toggles you through your iso planes. So then we come to these two. We've got object snap tracking and we've got object snap. Now I'm not 100% certain what object snap tracking does. It doesn't seem to change much if I turn it on or off. But anyway, what is useful is having the ability to track. So depending on some track settings, if I wanted maybe to draw a line that was the extension of this and then to tie in with my polar track sets, then I get these sorts of intersections. So it's a very powerful way to draw objects in AutoCAD. So snaps, click on the down pointing arrow there, and these are the ones you set. We will definitely need endpoint, midpoint and center. The rest are up for grabs. I'd probably keep intersection on, and I like extension. That's probably it. If I wanted something else in mid draw, as it were, then I can press the shift key and right click, and then this gives me my one snap option. So if I wanted just to snap quickly to the nearest point, then that'll do that. What you don't want to do is under your object snap settings is select them all, turn them all on. Don't want to do that. just very, very confusing. Okay, I know that people do turn them on, all of them, but I would suggest that you keep it to a bare minimum and then use the shift right click for your one hit snap. I'm going to stop this at that point and then we'll move on from there. So we're going to start off again on line weight. So back in a second.